Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to my second and final review of the Sierra West Scale Models Logging Camp Main Street. I covered quite a lot of detail in the first review, and the purpose of that was I wanted to show many people who have never bought such a Craftsman kit what was in the box and the kind of details you get inside, particularly the castings, which I believe were over 100 castings and details that you get inside it. The purpose of this video, which I'm really hoping would be a lot shorter, is to actually kind of show you my version of the kits as I've completed them, and to actually let you decide and discuss a few thoughts and pointers along the way that I've had while putting these kits together. I mean, it's no secret, but I think that it's an amazing set. You literally get four separate buildings for the price of the kit, and they are all pretty beautiful. They all give you a high level of customization that you can see. So this is the first building, which is actually two buildings into one, but you build them as one. You can't really take them apart. The dry goods and the hotel, and it's completed with lots of details, and I would say 99% of the castings and details that you see on these buildings were from the actual kit. A few probably I added on myself. The figures don't come with the kit, so you have to add them on, right? So this is the hotel. I will put this aside. This is actually the smallest one and the last one to build. This is actually the first aid store, and what you would actually see is along the way, as I got more confidence building these kits, I realized that they were, to be honest, really too beautiful to just build them as normal kits without interiors. So I started to improvise, and so these do not come with the instructions, but I just felt that they were just too beautiful to have without an interior. So the flooring were excess wood pieces that also came from the set. Let me see if we can zoom into this. But many of the castings I think I found, and obviously the figures I added myself. So this is the first aid kit. And then the other thing that occurred to me as I was starting to put these kits together was that I don't necessarily have space right now in my home, and I don't really have a full-size layout. So I took inspiration from many other diorama builders, and what they actually do is they build a kit, they actually put it on. Many of them use plywood, some of them use foam. I decided to use MDF board because they're cheap, they're really sturdy, even if you get a thin piece. And because they're so thin, I'm hoping that sometime in the future when I have a layout, I'd be able to actually plant this onto the layout, and worst come to worst, if that doesn't work, I could just saw through these and then reuse the buildings. So this is actually the shed. You can't see it quite clearly, obviously, because the tree and kind of went a bit wild with the weathering. And this was actually the first building I put together, where I got the inspiration to build a roof and then add lights inside and again put in an interior. You can see just building the flooring and, in my mind, making it whole and complete. So this is the shed. I'll put it aside, and I kind of saved the last one, the biggest one for the last one, and this guy's huge. I'm going to move the box away, and you can see that this is actually the warehouse. The funny thing is, when you go to the instructions, someone actually said that the order in which you build the houses are first the hotel, second one was the warehouse. And on the Sierra West forum, someone was actually saying that, well, this is an easier build than the hotel after you've gone through it the first time. And I was like, I don't think so. This, to me, this building was a lot bigger. It was a lot more challenging in a really good way. As you can see, multiple materials in the roof, as well as the opportunities to still practice the board on board. Plus, they also give you the casting, which was the actual brick. So this was putting the bricks together, weathering them. Yeah, that's probably a better view where you can see a lot of the details without me destroying my little diorama. Um, and again, this is where I got my inspiration from. I'll try and remove the cover without destroying the camera or my kit. This carefully. There you go. So I wanted to give all of you a quick update, right, in terms of my adventures with these kits. And I wanted to make this video a little bit shorter so that you could have a sense of what you can actually build with these kits, should you want to take the plunge yourself. There have been a couple of questions that have been asked of the channels: where do you buy them, how much you pay for them, and things like that. I'll cover that at the end, but first of all, I want to give you some thoughts about who do I think these kits are for, right? Please bear in mind that I've built many kits myself. I have Craftsman kits too, like things from bar mills, but they also mainly clapboard kits where you put the sides together. This is the first time I'm building a Sierrra West model kit. It's also the first time I've ever built something which has board-on-board construction. So I hope that's a bit of an encouragement to you, because if I can do it, I'm sure you can as well. So I hope you take some encouragement for that. But having said that, there are certain things you need to bear in mind with, and this is some things that I've discovered myself, where as a modeler, because this may not be for everybody, right? First of all, I think that if you want to put a kit like this together, you have to accept that it's going to take a long time to build this. Unless you're retired, unless you're going to do this every single day, every waking hour, then sure, you probably complete this in a couple of weeks. But I took several months to build this kit, and I took my time with them, because a lot of the times I either wasn't really happy with what I was doing. I kind of maybe didn't understand the instructions as well. So I had to sleep over it, right? And I got up the next day better, with a different approach, with more courage, and then tackled that on. Secondly, these kits do require, in my opinion, a non-linear approach. And this is something I only discovered for myself as I grew older. When I was a lot younger, when I used to build Affix and Tamiya kits, I was basically a very impatient builder, and I needed to go from page 1 to page 50 in those order, and I would just be rushing to finish the kits off, right? What you have to understand is that the nature in which you have to build these kits is, it's a very non-linear approach. First you're staining all the wood, and then maybe you're painting them, you're distressing them, and then maybe you're doing something else with the windows, and then you're doing the shingles on the roof, and then after that maybe you're thinking, okay, I got to get to the brickwork now, and you're doing. So it's a very non-linear approach. It sort of works really well for me, because I actually don't have much space, and I don't have a full layout, so that actually allows me to work on different things at different times, and it actually takes away the mundaneness, if you get my meaning. You're not always doing the same thing in a row for 7 days straight. Now, if that is you and that appeals to you, oh yeah, and obviously there's castings. You're painting the castings, you're weathering them, you are adding rust. If you're the kind of person who likes to do multiple things at the same time, and you like to go back and forth between different projects, and then maybe you get different inspiration, and then you want to change something halfway, if you're that kind of person, I think this will be good for you as well. But if you're that kind of person who I was, where I gotta stick to page 1, I gotta go to page 2, oh, why is it asking me to do something, and then you've got to hop out and do something else totally different for maybe 2-3 days, and then you're able to go to the next page. That slow approach, if you don't like that, then maybe that's kind of not for you, right? So I wanted to really cover that as well. Finally, where can you get Sierra West scale kits? Well, I would always point you to Brad Gallen himself and his website, because he is still selling many of these kits, and many of them go for their original prices from what they were in the beginning, right? And I would say, if you're talking about HO scale, and O scale isn't that much more expensive, but HO scale kits, they all range from about $345 upwards, but they're between 345 to 400 US dollars, which, if you ask me, is very reasonable if you look at what I've built here. Your other options would obviously be, if you go to train shows, if you're fortunate enough to be mainly in the US, perhaps in the UK, and you'd have many of these shops selling some of these kits. You can also go online, and they're very good train groups IO that you can join, either narrow gauge group, HON3. Sometimes you have people selling their old kits or kits they no longer want to build. Again, those come about at reasonable prices. Now, your final option is obviously eBay. I buy a tons of stuff from eBay for my hobby, simply because I can't get them for where I live. I live in Asia and not in the US or the UK, but I have never bought a Sierra West scale kit from eBay. I would advise you to monitor those auctions very carefully. You can get a good deal. I've seen them go, and I've been tempted myself, where sometimes you get someone selling something for $300 or $400. Those prices are pretty decent because they're very close to the original ones. But I know most of the time you get people asking in excess of $500, $600, even $700. And my advice is, I wouldn't pay for those costs. And frankly, if you were to pay for those costs, why not give the money to Brad Gallen himself, right? I mean, you can get a very similar looking kit. If you can't find this Main Street kit anymore, there is the Railroad Camp kit, which I believe is still for sale, and that goes for $345. You also get, I believe, 3 or 4 buildings in that kit. So that's all there is for me today. I wanted to make this video a lot shorter, and I hope these tips have been helpful. I hope that you've enjoyed looking at the builds and what I put together. Thank you for looking at my video, and I hope this has been truly helpful for you. Thank you, and God bless.